The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Phil Goff.
Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, joining us this morning. Good morning, Phil.
Good morning, Wammo.
If you could start the whole week over again, Phil, what would you do different?
I would probably have acted in pretty much the same way. You always learn things with the benefit of hindsight. But I made a decision very early on in the piece when I learnt that a complaint had been lodged against Darren Hughes. I thought, well, there are two options open to me. One, I can stand Darren down, but I can't do that. I can't do that other than publicly, which then would raise a range of questions and would lead to the police inquiry not being conducted in the normal fashion, but in the midst of a media storm. Or I can follow the process of natural justice and say a complaint has been lodged. The police are investigating that complaint. They can talk to the complainant as well as to Darren Hughes and any other relevant witness. Those are things that I can't do to make a decision as to whether anything improper occurred. Wait for that, and once I have a report from the police, then I will make a decision, and I'll make a decision very quickly. And I told Darren that, if the matter was going to go ahead with a charge, then he would stand down from Parliament. Not because I was prejudging his case at that point, but because he wouldn't be able to focus on his job. The danger with going publicly on it was that I risked putting the privacy of the complainant at risk. And I noticed that his mum was quite outspoken about that, and rightly so, that he has been jeopardised by the publicity around this. I risk prejudicing Darren's case because if people would say, the police haven't even done an investigation on it, and you're prejudging it. You're standing him down. You must know something we don't know. And the police wouldn't have thanked me because it would have simply made their job more difficult.
But in some ways this is all inevitable, though, isn't it? The way it's rolled out is inevitable. It was always going to get out, wasn't it?
Well, eventually, it would have been an announcement, and at that point, I would have made it public after the police had given advice about what they intended to do and what their investigation had shown up. I would have made a decision within a couple of hours on that basis.
But the previous experience, though, with other similar cases down through history is that it always gets out before the police are finished because police take so long to do anything. So the word always spreads around, and then eventually the press gallery gets a hold of it, and it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah, my understanding was that the police investigation would have been conducted within a relatively short space of time. I don't know that is now the case. I think the police investigation will now take a lot longer.
You are coming under criticism, though, for your handling of this. Regardless, people are saying that it could have been handled better. You could have made other decisions. In fact, you could have spoken to your party president as well, perhaps to get some advice on this. But he didn't know anything about it.
No, he in common with the caucus. When I received information that a police inquiry was taking place, for exactly the reasons you've just been talking about, I decided that I wasn't going to go wider with this. I was simply going to wait for the outcome of the investigation. I did consult with how matters have been handled in other jurisdictions on that front, and I've got the advice in front of me saying, well, if you'd gone public, you would have prejudiced the police investigations and any eventual trial that could have led you to being involved with influencing the course of justice. It would have encouraged the politics of false allegations, which has happened in other jurisdictions, and it would have been grossly unfair to the person who would have been believed to have committed a wrongful act simply because I'd stood him aside.
What is the way through this? How can you survive this? How can Labour survive this?
Oh, look, the way through it, first of all, in relation to Darren Hughes' case, is that I came to the conclusion, as Darren did by Friday, that he couldn't continue under that storm of controversy. That made his job at that point absolutely impossible, and unjust as it might or might not be, he has now lost a career and a very talented and competent person.
You don't think he's coming back?
Well, that will, I suppose, depend on what the outcome of the police investigation is, as it always would have. If the police investigation had found that there was no, that there was nothing on which they could validly base charges being laid, I would have taken action with respect to Darren because of judgment in the circumstances, which I think has been brought into question. If charges were going to be laid, I told Darren, well, there's no way that you can continue to operate as a parliamentarian while the charges are before the court. And that's notwithstanding that, you have the presumption of innocence at that point. But a prima facie case would have been established if charges were to be laid, and that would have made his job impossible at that point. So the decision then was very clear. But the decision to prejudice the whole process and the way it was carried out and the rights of the complainant as well as the person being complained against, I thought was paramount over politics.
When you found out, when Darren told you, what did you say to him?
Well, I said it was a serious matter and spoke to him about the implications of whatever finding might be made by the police in this respect. But that my view was that the police should be allowed to do their investigation without political interference and without massive speculation around the case.
But also, did you say to him, why the hell did you get yourself in that position?
Well, that's a discussion for down the track, but I indicated that it was a position that he should not have got himself into.
One thing that I'm thinking that could perhaps redeem the situation somewhat is perhaps prevent Judith Tizard coming back into Parliament, Phil Goff?
Well, what happens now is set out very clearly under the electoral law, and that is when a list MP stands down from Parliament, the Electoral Commission approaches the next person on that party list and offers that person the job as parliamentarian. In this case, it will be a short-term job. It'll only be 6 months, but that process must be followed by law. And whichever of the MPs, if any of them the former MPs decide to take up that position, I've said that they would be welcome back in the caucus.
I don't understand why she's still doing in the party. Why she's even on the list?
Well, the list is the list that was set out at the last election. The electoral law relates to that very clearly.
But surely she has no intention of standing in the next election anyway. So what would be the point?
That would apply to Judith, to Mark Burton, to Mahara Okaroa, to Dave Heriora, to Martin Gallagher. None of them have been nominated or have nominated themselves to be parliamentarians again. That's why it would be a very short-term position. The next person after that is Louisa Wall, who has been nominated for Parliament, and the party president suggested, well, there was some logic in her taking up the position, but there is a legal procedure to be followed, and I don't want to prejudice the right of any of my former colleagues to take up that position if they so choose. I would expect them to talk with the party as well as their family and friends and determine what the appropriate decision is for them to make.
You are facing a caucus meeting today.
No, that's not correct. I've got a Labour front bench meeting, which is the normally scheduled meeting tomorrow.
Do you expect a challenge to your leadership today?
Absolutely not. And what is always surprising about these things, the media spent all weekend ringing all of my colleagues around the country, got no comfort from anybody that there was any suggestion of leadership challenge, but still run the front page stories on it. David Longy once famously described the media as reef fish, and I think here's a perfect example of it.
Thanks very much, Phil. Cheers.
Okay, thanks, mate.
See you,
Wammo.
Leader of the Labour Party, Phil Goff, there with us this morning.